you're making your life harder than it needs to be. Not because you lack intelligence, not because you lack effort, but because you've confused complexity with competence. You build elaborate plans, you chase multiple goals simultaneously, you fill your calendar until it bursts, and nothing moves forward. Here's the paradox: the simpler your approach, the bigger your results. Complexity impresses people, simplicity changes lives. This is how you strip away what doesn't matter and focus on what does. Chapter 1. Stop treating busy as proof of progress. Busy is not the same as productive, but somewhere along the way you started believing it was. You measure your worth by how packed your schedule looks. You wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. You confuse motion with movement. This is the trap. You're working constantly, but accomplishing little. You're checking boxes, but building nothing. You're busy, yes, but busy doesn't pay you. Busy doesn't change your life. Busy just keeps you tired. The modern world rewards the appearance of effort. It rewards people who look overwhelmed, who talk about how many meetings they have, who complain about having no time. This performance creates validation. It makes you feel important, needed, essential. But strip away the performance and ask what actually got done, what actually moved forward, what actually exists now that didn't exist before. Often the answer is uncomfortable. All that activity produced almost nothing. Here's why this happens. Busy protects you from real work. Real work is uncomfortable. It requires focus. It demands that you face your limitations. It exposes whether your ideas actually work. Busy lets you avoid all of that by keeping you distracted with tasks that feel productive but aren't. Think about your last week. How much time did you spend in meetings that could have been emails? How much time organizing tools instead of using them? How much time planning instead of executing? How much time responding to urgent things that weren't actually important? Most people spend entire days like this, moving, reacting, responding, managing, but never creating, never building, never finishing. They're treading water and calling it swimming. They're maintaining their current position and calling it progress. The shift starts with redefining what counts. Progress is not hours worked. Progress is outcomes created. Progress is something finished, something delivered, something that exists in the world that didn't exist yesterday. If you can't point to a tangible result, the busy was just noise. This doesn't mean every day must produce a finished product, but it means you must distinguish between work that builds toward completion and work that just fills time. Most people never make this distinction, so they stay perpetually busy while their actual goals starve. Complexity loves busy. It thrives in packed schedules and endless to-do lists. It makes you feel productive through sheer volume. Simplicity asks a different question. What's the one thing that would actually move this forward? That question eliminates most of what you're doing, because most of what you're doing is maintenance, management, communication about communication, preparation for preparation, layers of activity that exist only to justify themselves. Real progress requires space. Space to think, space to focus, space to build without interruption. When your entire day is fragments of attention scattered across dozens of tasks, that space never exists. You're always switching, always starting, never finishing. The wealthy don't have busier calendars than you. They have clearer ones. They protect time for the work that actually creates value. They say no to almost everything, so they can say yes to the few things that matter. They understand that availability is not a virtue when it comes at the cost of achievement. You must develop this same ruthlessness, not with people, with tasks, with requests, with obligations that look important but aren't. Every yes to something trivial is a no to something meaningful. You can't say yes to everything and still accomplish anything. How many hours did you spend last week on tasks you won't remember next month? Starting today, track your actual outcomes, not your activity. At the end of each day, Write down what you completed, not what you worked on, what you finished. If the list is short, despite the hours being long, you have a busy problem, not a productivity problem. And busy problems are solved by elimination, not by working harder, because progress isn't measured by how tired you are at the end of the day. It's measured by what exists that didn't exist before. Chapter 2. Understand that addition rarely solves problems. Subtraction does. When something isn't working, your first instinct is to add more effort, more tools, more strategies, more hours, more complexity. This instinct is wrong most of the time. The solution is usually subtraction, not addition. Think about how people approach goals. They're not fit, so they add supplements, workout programs, meal plans, tracking apps, and fitness gear. They're not productive, so they add productivity systems, time-blocking methods, new software, and morning routines. They're not making money, so they add side hustles, courses, coaches, and networking events. All of this adding creates weight, mental weight, logistical weight, decision weight. Each new element requires attention, maintenance, integration, and suddenly the original goal is buried under the complexity of all the things you added to achieve it. Here's the reality. Most problems exist because of what you're doing, not because of what you're not doing. The fitness problem isn't lack of supplements, it's the junk food you eat daily. The productivity problem isn't lack of systems, it's the distractions you allow constantly. The money problem isn't lack of opportunities, it's the spending you haven't controlled. Subtraction fixes these problems faster than addition ever could. Stop eating junk, and your body transforms without any supplements. Remove distractions, and your productivity explodes without any systems. Control spending, and your finances stabilize without any side hustles. But subtraction is psychologically harder than addition. Addition feels like action. You're doing something, buying something, implementing something. It creates the sensation of progress, even when it's creating more problems. Subtraction feels like inaction, like giving up, like doing less when you think you should be doing more. This is why most people choose complexity. It feels more substantial, more serious, more like you're really trying. Simplicity feels too easy, too obvious, too much like you're not working hard enough. But the hardest work is often removing what doesn't belong, not adding what might help. Think about your workspace. If it's cluttered, adding more organizational tools doesn't fix it. Removing the clutter does. Think about your schedule. If it's overwhelming, adding time management apps doesn't fix it. Removing commitments does. Think about your mind. If it's scattered, adding meditation apps doesn't fix it. Removing inputs does. The pattern is consistent. The problem is excess. The solution is reduction. Yet most people never try reduction because it feels like they're not doing enough. They need to feel like they're fighting. Adding gives you something to fight with. Subtracting feels like surrender. But subtraction is not weakness. It's precision. It's the discipline to identify what matters and eliminate what doesn't. This is harder than it sounds because you've developed emotional attachments to your complexity. You've invested time, money, and ego into the things you added. Removing them feels like admitting you wasted those resources. So you keep them. You keep the unused gym membership because you might use it. You keep the productivity app because you paid for it. You keep the commitment because you said yes months ago. And all of this accumulates into a life that's heavier than it needs to be. Subtraction also requires that you confront what you're avoiding. If you remove all the distractions, you're left facing the actual work. If you remove all the complexity, you're left facing the simple truth about whether you're capable. That truth is uncomfortable, so you hide behind additions, behind more research, more preparation, more optimization. The wealthy understand this instinctively. They don't add more investments. They focus on fewer, better ones. They don't add more goals. They eliminate everything except the vital few. They don't add more hours. They protect the hours they have from interruption. Subtraction is their competitive advantage. You must develop the same instinct. When something isn't working, your first question should be, what can I remove? Not what can I add? What's creating friction here? What's consuming energy without producing results? What would this look like if it were simple? These questions reveal the truth. Most of your struggles come from carrying too much, too many goals, too many commitments, too many options, too many tools, too many opinions about what you should be doing. The weight of all this crushes progress before it can begin. How much of what you're carrying right now is actually moving you forward? Starting today, practice subtraction. Choose one area of your life, your schedule, your goals, your workspace, your routines, then ask, what here doesn't need to exist? What can I remove without losing anything essential? Start removing. Don't replace what you remove. Just let the space exist. Watch how much easier everything becomes when the weight is gone. Because addition is easy, subtraction is powerful, and power is what you need, not more things to manage. Chapter 3. Realize that most decisions don't matter, and stop treating them like they do. You're exhausted from deciding. Every day, hundreds of micro-decisions drain your mental energy before you even reach the work that matters. What to wear, what to eat, when to start, which task first, what to respond to, what to ignore. Each decision costs energy you don't have to waste. But here's what most people miss. The vast majority of decisions you make don't actually matter. They feel important in the moment. They create anxiety about making the wrong choice. But in reality, the outcome is nearly identical, regardless of which option you choose. Think about it. Does it matter what you eat for breakfast? Not really. Does it matter which productivity app you use? Not at all. Does it matter what color notebook you buy? Zero impact. Yet you spend mental energy on these decisions as if they're significant. This is decision fatigue, and it's invisible. You don't feel it happening, you just feel tired, scattered, less able to focus on important work, and you assume you're just having a bad day, but you're not. You're depleted from deciding about things that don't matter. The solution is simple but counterintuitive. Make fewer decisions by making more decisions in advance. This sounds paradoxical, but when you decide something once and turn it into a rule or routine, you never have to decide it again. That's one decision that saves thousands. Look at successful people. They wear the same thing every day, eat the same breakfast, start work at the same time, follow the same routine, not because they're rigid, because they're protecting their decision-making capacity for decisions that actually matter. They've eliminated trivial choices so they can focus cognitive power on strategic ones. You need to do the same. Identify every recurring decision in your life, then decide it once, permanently. What time you wake, what you eat for breakfast, when you work, when you check messages, what days you train. These become defaults, not decisions. They happen automatically. This creates enormous mental relief. You're not negotiating with yourself constantly. You're not weighing options every morning. You're following the system you already decided. And systems don't require willpower, they just run. Another category of unnecessary decisions, perfect choices. Most people agonize over finding the perfect option, the perfect time, the perfect method, the perfect tool. This pursuit of perfection creates paralysis. You delay action while you research, compare, and optimize for a perfect that doesn't exist. Here's the truth. Most choices are reversible. Most methods work if applied consistently. Most tools are sufficient. The difference between good and perfect is tiny, but the difference between action and inaction is everything. Stop optimizing decisions that don't matter and just move. The 80-20 rule applies here. 20% of your decisions create 80% of your results. The other 80% of decisions barely move the needle, but you're spending equal mental energy on all of them. This is why you're exhausted. You're treating every decision like it's crucial when most are trivial. You must learn to identify high-leverage decisions and low-leverage decisions. High-leverage decisions deserve thought. Who you work with, what skills you build, how you spend your peak hours, these shape your trajectory. Give them the attention they deserve. Low-leverage decisions deserve speed, not precision. What brand of notebook? Which restaurant? What time to start a task that could start any time? These don't matter. Make them fast and move on. Spending 10 minutes deciding between two equally fine options is wasting 10 minutes. This also applies to reversible versus irreversible decisions. Irreversible decisions deserve careful thought. Reversible decisions deserve quick action. Most decisions are reversible. If you choose wrong, you can choose again. The cost of a wrong choice is usually tiny. The cost of not choosing is huge. Another trap, seeking perfect information. You want more data before deciding, more research, more opinions, but perfect information never arrives. And while you wait, time passes, opportunities close, momentum dies. Simplicity understands that good information plus fast action beats perfect information plus slow action. How much energy are you wasting on decisions that won't matter next week? Starting today, implement decision rules. For every recurring choice, decide once and make it a rule. Breakfast at 7 a.m., always the same thing. Work starts at 9 a.m., no negotiation. Messages checked at 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. only. Training happens Monday, Wednesday, Friday. These rules eliminate decisions before they can drain you, because decision fatigue is real, and the only way to beat it is to stop deciding things that don't need your attention. Save your mental energy for the few decisions that actually change your life. Chapter 4. Accept that focus is impossible when everything is a priority. You say everything is important. Your health, your career, your relationships, your side projects, your learning, your hobbies, your social life, your finances, all of it matters, and because all of it matters, none of it gets your full attention. This is the priority paradox. When everything is a priority, nothing is true. Priority requires sacrifice. It requires choosing one thing over another. It requires saying no to good things so you can say yes to great things. Most people refuse to make this choice, so they try to do everything, and everything suffers. Think about your last month. How many goals were you pursuing? How many projects were you advancing? How many areas were you trying to improve? If the number is more than 3, you're scattered. Your attention is fragmented. Your energy is diluted, and your progress in any single area is minimal. This doesn't mean you can't care about multiple things. It means you can't actively pursue multiple things simultaneously and expect meaningful progress. The brain doesn't work that way. Focus requires concentration. Concentration requires singularity. Singularity means choosing. Most people resist this. They want to believe they can have it all at once. They can build a business while learning a language, while getting in shape, while maintaining a social life, while reading extensively, while traveling regularly. And they can, technically, but they can't do all of it well. They'll make tiny progress in everything while mastering nothing. Mastery requires obsession, at least temporarily. It requires you to pour disproportionate attention into one area until you break through. Once you break through, you can shift focus, but trying to break through in 6 areas at once ensures you stay on the surface of all 6 forever. Here's how this shows up in real life. You have 15 tabs open, 3 books started, 5 projects in progress, 10 goals for the year, and at the end of every week, you're frustrated that none of them advance significantly. Because you spent Monday on one, Tuesday on another, Wednesday on a third. You never stayed with anything long enough to create momentum. Momentum is everything. It's the compounding effect of sustained attention. When you focus on one thing for days, weeks, months, the progress accelerates. The first week is slow, the second week builds. By the third month, you're moving fast, but you never reach month 3 because you keep switching to something else. The solution is ruthless prioritization, not just identifying what matters, but identifying what matters most right now, and then eliminating, postponing, or automating everything else until the priority is handled. This feels extreme. It is extreme, but extreme focus produces extreme results. Look at anyone who achieved something significant. They didn't do it while balancing 20 priorities. They chose one thing and went all in. They ignored other opportunities. They said no to distractions. They let other areas of their life coast while they dominated one. That's how breakthroughs happen. You must be willing to do the same, not forever, but for focused periods. Choose the one goal that would most transform your life if achieved in the next 90 days. Then make everything else secondary, not eliminated, just secondary. They get the leftover energy, not the prime energy. This creates clarity. You know where your day is going. You know what task gets your peak hours. You know what can wait. You know what doesn't matter. And when you know these things, decision-making becomes simple. Everything is measured against the priority. Does this support it? No. Then it's a distraction. Most people live in permanent distraction because they never chose a priority. Everything competes equally for their attention, so they respond to whatever is loudest. And the loudest things are rarely the most important. They're just the most urgent. Urgency and importance are not the same. This is why people work all day and accomplish nothing meaningful. They spent the day responding to urgent but unimportant tasks, while the important but not urgent priority was ignored. This pattern repeats until weeks become months, become years, and the priority never moves. How many goals are you pursuing right now that are stealing focus from the one that actually matters? Starting today, choose one priority, just one. For the next 30 days, this priority gets your best hours, your deepest focus, your most creative energy. Everything else happens in the gaps. If the gaps don't leave time for something, that something waits. 30 days of singular focus will produce more progress than a year of scattered attention. Because focus is binary, you either have it or you don't, and you can't have it when everything is competing for it. Chapter 5. Stop optimizing what doesn't need to exist. Optimization feels productive. You're making something better, more efficient, more refined. You're improving. But here's the trap. You're optimizing something that shouldn't exist in the first place. You're polishing a process that should be eliminated. You're perfecting a task that adds no value. This is wasted effort, disguised as improvement, and it's everywhere. People spend hours optimizing their morning routine when they should question whether half of it is necessary. They refine their productivity system when they should question whether most of their tasks matter. They perfect their schedule when they should question whether most of their commitments belong there. Optimization makes sense only after you've confirmed the thing is worth doing. But most people skip that step. They assume because something exists, it must be optimized. This assumption creates endless work on things that don't deserve attention at all. Think about business processes. Companies spend months optimizing workflows for tasks that could be automated or eliminated entirely. They refine inefficient systems instead of replacing them. They make bad processes faster instead of asking why the process exists. The same happens in personal life. You optimize how you respond to emails instead of questioning whether you need to respond to most of them. You optimize your workout split instead of questioning whether you're overcomplicating training. You optimize your budget categories instead of questioning whether you're spending on things you don't value. This is complexity's favorite trick. It keeps you busy improving the wrong things, and while you're optimizing, you're not eliminating, you're not simplifying, you're not questioning, you're just making the unnecessary slightly better. The solution requires brutal honesty. Before optimizing anything, ask, should this exist at all? Would anything bad happen if I deleted this? Is this creating value, or just consuming time? If the answer is that it's consuming time without creating proportional value, don't optimize it, remove it. This applies to everything. Meetings that could be messages, processes that could be simplified, tasks that could be delegated or eliminated, tools that duplicate functionality, goals that don't align with your actual values, obligations that exist only out of guilt, all of it. Most people resist elimination because of sunk cost. They've already invested time building the thing, learning the system, setting up the process. Eliminating it feels like admitting that investment was wasted, so they keep it and try to make it better. This compounds the waste instead of stopping it. Simplicity has no ego about sunk costs. If something isn't working, you stop. You don't optimize failure into slightly better failure. You stop and do something else. The past investment is gone regardless. You can't recover it by continuing to pour energy into what doesn't work. Another issue, optimization, often becomes procrastination. You're not ready to do the hard work, so you optimize the tools, the environment, the system. You reorganize your files instead of creating content. You perfect your setup instead of starting the project. You research better methods instead of applying the method you already know works. This optimization feels productive because it's work, but it's work that avoids the real work, and the real work is always uncomfortable. That's why optimization is seductive. It lets you stay in your comfort zone while feeling like you're making progress. How much time have you spent this week optimizing things that don't need to exist? Starting today, audit everything you do regularly. For each activity, ask, if I removed this completely, would anything important break? If the answer is no, stop doing it. Don't optimize it. Don't improve it. Just stop. Redirect that time and energy to things that actually matter. Because optimization without elimination is just rearranging deck chairs on a sinking ship. The ship is still sinking. You're just making the furniture look nice while it goes down. Chapter 6. Build systems that run without your constant attention. You're the bottleneck in your own life. Every task requires your input. Every decision needs your approval. Every problem demands your attention. You've built a life that can't function without you constantly managing it. This is exhausting, and it's unnecessary. The problem is, you've never built systems. You've only built tasks. Tasks require you. Systems run without you. Tasks are manual. Systems are automatic. Tasks drain energy. Systems create energy. The shift from tasks to systems is the shift from exhaustion to ease. Think about what you do repeatedly: paying bills, responding to similar messages, making the same decisions, handling recurring problems, organizing information. Each repetition costs mental energy, and that energy adds up until you're depleted from managing what should be automated. A system is a decision made once that eliminates future decisions. It's a process designed once that runs automatically. It's a rule established once that governs behavior permanently. Systems remove you from the equation, and removing yourself is the goal. Most people resist this. They think being needed is important, being involved is responsible, being hands-on is diligent, but being the single point of failure in your own life is fragile. When you're sick, everything stops. When you're busy, everything waits. When you're busy, everything waits. When you're unavailable, everything breaks. Systems create resilience. They keep things running regardless of your state. They don't care if you're tired. They execute automatically. They preserve your energy for the few things that actually need your unique input. Everything else runs on its own. Start with financial systems. Automate bill payments. Automate savings. Automate investments. Every financial task that happens regularly should happen automatically. This eliminates the monthly scramble. It eliminates forgetting. It eliminates the mental load of remembering. Move to communication systems. Create templates for messages you send repeatedly. Create filters that organize incoming information automatically. Create rules about when and how you respond. Stop treating every message like a unique event requiring custom thought. Most messages are variations of the same few categories. Systematize the response. Apply this to decision-making. You make the same decisions repeatedly. What to eat, when to work, how to spend free time. Each time you make these decisions fresh, you waste energy. Instead, create rules, meal rules, schedule rules, spending rules. These rules become your system. They decide for you. The same applies to goals. Most people set goals, but never build systems to achieve them. They rely on motivation and willpower. Both are finite. Systems are infinite. A system for fitness means training is scheduled, non-negotiable, automatic. No daily decision about whether to work out. The system handles it. A system for learning means reading or studying happens at the same time daily. No negotiation, no motivation required. The system runs. A system for business growth means outreach happens weekly. Content creation happens on specific days. Follow-up is templated and scheduled. The system doesn't care how you feel. It executes. This is how you escape being the bottleneck. You design the system once, then let it run. You maintain it occasionally. You improve it when needed. But you don't operate it manually every single time. The system operates itself. Most people never reach this level because they're too busy being busy. They never pause long enough to build the infrastructure. They keep reacting, keep managing, keep manually handling what should be automatic, and they wonder why they're exhausted. Building systems requires upfront investment, time to design, time to implement, time to test, but this investment pays permanent dividends. 1 hour building a system saves hundreds of hours managing tasks manually. The return is enormous. Systems also create consistency. Manual effort creates inconsistency because it depends on your state. When you're motivated, you act. When you're not, you don't. Systems don't fluctuate. They run regardless. This consistency compounds, and compounding is where transformation happens. How much of what you do daily could be systematized but isn't? Starting today, identify 3 tasks you do repeatedly. Build a system for each. Automate what can be automated. Template what can be templated. Schedule what can be scheduled. Remove yourself from the execution. Let the system run. Watch how much energy you recover when you stop being required for every small thing. Because your time is too valuable to spend on what systems can handle. Save it for what only you can do. Chapter 7. Accept that simple doesn't mean easy and commit anyway. Simplicity is not the same as easy. This is the final truth most people miss. They think if something is simple, it should be effortless, comfortable, light, and when simple things feel hard, they assume they're doing it wrong. They abandon the simple path and return to complexity. But simple things are often the hardest, not because they're complicated, because they're honest. They expose you. They remove the hiding places complexity provides. They demand consistency. They require discipline. They show you exactly where you stand, and that honesty is uncomfortable. Think about fitness. The path is simple. Eat less junk, move more, rest enough. That's it. 3 things. But those 3 simple things feel impossibly hard for most people. Why? Because simple doesn't mean easy. It means direct. And direct means there's nowhere to hide from your own lack of discipline. Same with money. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference. Simple, but brutally hard for people who've built their identity around consumption. The simplicity exposes the emotional attachments, the social pressures, the self-worth issues tied to spending. Complexity hides all of that. Simplicity forces you to face it. Same with relationships. Communicate clearly, set boundaries, show up consistently. Simple, but emotionally demanding because it requires vulnerability. It requires you to risk rejection. It requires you to be direct when hinting feels safer. Complexity lets you stay vague. Simplicity demands clarity. This is why people return to complexity after trying simplicity. Simplicity didn't fail them. They just weren't prepared for how exposed they'd feel, how much discipline it would require, how clearly it would show their weaknesses. So they complicate things again, add layers, create systems that look sophisticated but don't demand as much. But here's what they miss. The discomfort of simplicity is growth. The exposure is feedback. The discipline requirement is the point. Simplicity doesn't make life comfortable. It makes life effective, and effective is what you need if you want actual results. The commit anyway part is critical. You must commit to the simple path even when it feels hard, even when complexity looks more appealing, even when you're not seeing results immediately, because simplicity compounds slowly. It doesn't give you the dopamine hit of adding new things. It just works quietly over time. Most people can't tolerate that delay. They want immediate validation. They want to see progress daily. And when simple habits don't produce visible results in the first week, they quit. They think it's not working, but it is working. It's just working at a pace they're not used to. Complexity gives fast feedback. You add something new, it feels different immediately. You feel productive, busy, like you're doing something. Simplicity gives slow feedback. You do the same simple thing every day, and it feels like nothing is happening. Until months later, when you look back and everything has changed. This requires a different mindset. You can't measure simplicity day to day. You measure it month to month, year to year. The person who trains simply 3 times weekly doesn't look different after a week. They look completely different after a year. The person who writes daily doesn't publish anything impressive the first month. They have a book by month 6. You must commit to the timeline simplicity demands, not the timeline complexity promises. Complexity promises fast results and delivers burnout. Simplicity promises nothing immediately and delivers transformation eventually. Most people choose the promise over the reality, and they stay stuck. Another aspect. Simple is not minimal. Simple is focused. You're not doing less work. You're doing less scattered work and more concentrated work. You're not lowering standards. You're raising clarity. You're not being lazy. You're being precise. This distinction matters because people confuse simplicity with lack of effort. Simplicity requires enormous effort, just directed effort, instead of diffused effort. All your energy goes to the few things that matter, instead of spreading across the many things that don't. This concentration is harder than distribution. Distribution lets you feel like you're trying everywhere. Concentration demands you succeed somewhere. That demand is what makes simplicity uncomfortable. You're accountable. If you fail with a simple approach, you can't blame the complexity of the system. You can't say you were confused. You can only admit you didn't execute. That level of honesty is rare. Most people would rather have complex excuses than simple accountability. How many times have you abandoned simple approaches because they felt too hard? Starting today, recommit to simplicity despite the discomfort. Choose the simple path in one area of your life. Stick with it for 90 days without adding complexity. When it feels hard, remember, hard is not the same as wrong. Hard means it's working. Hard means you're growing. Hard means you're doing what most people won't. And that's why it will produce what most people don't have. Because simplicity is the path, not the easy path, the effective path, and effective is all that matters. That is how simplicity wins, not by making life easier, by making life clearer. Complex systems fail. Simple systems endure. You don't need more strategies. You need fewer distractions. Strip away what doesn't matter. Focus on what does, and watch how far you go when nothing is in your way.